Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. Today I have a bit of a challenge from a donor. They wanted to see Green-Black Turbodepths in Legacy but without any cards that have modern border. So it's all old border and it's all available in paper in the old borders. So this is what I've come up with. For those who are unfamiliar, Dark Depths, this is a land that comes in with 10 counters on. When it has no counters you get a 20/20 flying indestructible. So Hexmage can just rip those counters off, and Thespian stage comes in not as a Dark Depths, but then copies it, and it'll be a copy that has no counters, so then we end up with a 20/20. So these are the ways that we're winning the game, and it's basically just that. We have a bunch of tutors in Sylvan Scrying and Crop Rotation. These are just all the parts that exist in the normal build of Green-Black Turbodepths. We have Hand Disruption in Thoughtseize. We're not able to split between Duress and Inquisition of Kozilek. We just have to have the Duresses here because there's no old bordered Inquisition of Kozilek in paper. There is one online, but we're trying to make this so this is available in paper. We have the fast mana in Lotus Petal and Spirit Guides. We have the Pithing Needles. We don't get Not of This World. We do get Sylvan Safekeeper, which is a card I like in the sideboard anyway, so it's not the worst thing to have this instead. It's going to be worse than Not of This World a decent portion of the time, but sometimes it might be better. So we're going to try and jam this and see how it feels today. The biggest changes, though, come in the mana base, really. Not having an Urborg is a big issue. It means that we have to have access to lands that actually tap for the colours we need, and we're going to be a little bit slower if we're trying to do Hexmage stuff because we can't just go turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Hexmage Depths off of like the Urborg Dark Depths start. So what I've come up with is a full set of Bayous here instead of the 2 that we normally run. We're still a fetch land mana base here, so we've got ourselves a Forest and a Swamp in here. We've got more fetches. We don't have many silver bullets in our land though. We have a Bojuka Bog that we can go and find to hose graveyards with our Crop Rotation, and we have a 1 of Wasteland. The other option that we had in Old Border, because Ghost Quarter is a thing that I would normally play, but we can't Ghost Quarter because it's got a new border. And Pithing Needle normally names Wasteland, so there is a bit of awkwardness with having a Wasteland in our deck. But the only other option was Field of Ruin, which is just too slow. So we have a 1 of Wasteland. Sometimes it'll be good and we can go and fetch it. We're also missing a Sejiri step here, which is normally a thing you can use to protect your Marit Lage and push it through. So that's probably going to come back to bite us a little bit as well. So there's definitely a few things we're losing here. The Bojuka is another one that is a tutorable thing to get rid of, ensnaring bridges or something spooky like that, as well as just being another piece of anti-wasteland tech if you need it. So we're definitely losing some tools to do this, but we have a little bit more mana to cast our spells because that's kind of how we're trying to offset the Urborg here. You could trim 1 Misty Rainforest here for a City of Brass if you wished. That would be reasonable. I'm going to leave it with the fetch lands. Yes, we have, what would we have here? 7 fetch lands, but only 6 fetchables. But if we fetched out all the lands from our decks, we're not really going to need to fetch anymore. And the lands just being in play are things can be sacrificed to Sylvan Safekeeper. So a fetch that can't find anything isn't actually that big a deal. We have a 1 of Yavimaya, which can allow us to do the turn 3 Goldfish with Thespian Stage, Dark Depths, and the Yavimaya. But it's going to be a little bit tricky. We're definitely taking a step down from regular Turbodepths in order to play this beautiful looking list with just these wonderful old bordered cards. I do have as many old borders as possible in my paper deck, but we're trying to go all out today. Sideboard wise, what do we have? Well, we have Leyline in the Void. This is an old border, so that's good. This is the piece of Graveyard Hate I'm choosing to go for here. I think even if we had access to an old border Fairy Macabre, I think I still want Leyline for now. We have Steely Resolve, which is a card I haven't played in list for a little while, but it's still very good. We play this, we name Avatar, which means our Marit Lage can't be dealt with until the Steely Resolve is dealt with. That is a really handy thing to have. We have 4 Abrupt Decays, so we can blow up things like Mages of the Moon, Blood Moon, Harbinger of the Seas, and Snaring Bridge, whatever. We have 3 Null Rods to hose on some of these decks that can go underneath us, like the sort of artifact combo decks where they're using the 1 ring or just a bunch of artifact mana. And we have a 1 of Spyglass because I would like to run an additional Pithing Needle. Because we don't have the Ghost Quarter, we're sort of slightly down on our effects against lands style decks where they might have things like Wasteland we need to shut off, but then also have a Caracas we need to shut off. So just having an extra Pithing Needle effect is probably going to be quite useful there. And that is the deck today. I think for the most part, the biggest change that we're going to miss, I suspect, is going to be the Urborg. That's probably going to be a bit of a tricky one to do without, because it means making our Hexmage castable is a little bit more difficult. But we'll see how we fare. I once did record a league with Green-Black Turbodepths where I played the wrong Urborg, so like the original Urborg from like Legends or whatever it was that doesn't really do anything. And we still managed to positive that one. So hopefully the heart of the cards will be with us today. And I hope you enjoy this challenge of something a little bit different. Alright, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's get stuck in. Okay, so our opener does not make a 2020, but we do have the Dark Depths. I don't think this is good enough, so we're going to send it back. Okay, let's do a little bit of maths here. So we have 1 mana here. If we find a second land, we just have the combo. So I think we keep this, and what mana are we going to keep here? It's probably bidding off a Spirit Guide. Because this way we can play the Lotus Petal and hold up Bojuka Bog if we need it. So we have 2 lands. We crop rotate 1 into Dark Depths, crop rotate the other into the Thespian stage. We have 2 bits of fast mana. We just get to go. Now, there's obviously some things that can stop us. Hand Disruption, Counter Magic, etc. But we can at least cover for Wasteland. We gain Thoughtseize on 1. I'm curious what they take here. It's probably a crop rotation, but they could take the Pithing Needle if their hand is quite Wasteland dense. The crop rots. Okay. So we now need to find one of our other combo pieces. A Yavimaya. Does that change things for us? I think it's better than playing out a forest here, because this means that we can naturally draw into the uncountable one a little bit easier. Let's play out the Pithing Needle. Our opponent's deck is not really going to interact with a Lotus Petal whilst it's in play. And just in case I had some sort of daze and I really wanted to protect this, we at least have the option if we have the Lotus Petal in play. I suspect this won't be where our opponent is going to aim their resources. They want to try and nail this crop rotation in our hand with things like Daze, potentially Force of Will. And Undercity Sewers. So I don't know if our opponent is on the Tempo or the Reanimator builds. Okay, this says Tempo to me. Good information to have. This is worse for us. Okay. We've got a Thespian stage. We can fire off an attempt this turn if we want to. So you have the 2 mana here. It's certainly not free to do. But we'll see if our opponent puts anything on the stack that we want to interact with. We do obviously have to worry about things like Brazen Borrower that can come down and ruin our day. A Ponder. Are we supposed to try and go off in response? I don't think we are, because we need to be able to respect a Brazen Borrower. So we need them to tap lower on mana. They know that we can go off here because they have the information of what's in our hand. If they don't attack with a Tamiyo, it tells us that they don't have a counterspell for our crop rotation. They just want to keep as many resources around to stop themselves dying. So let's see if they attack. There was a pause. Part of me wonders if they have it here. A Wasteland. So this is Brazen Borrower mana. I don't think we can go off in the face of a potential Brazen Borrower here. A Sylvan Scrying. Let's cast this Sylvan Scrying. This is obviously a lot less troublesome if they counterspell this. Right, so the Tamiyo is going to flip and they're going to start plussing it next turn, but they're on 18, so the -1 doesn't matter. It's a case of what they can get back with the minus in a couple of turns and if they can pop the ultimate. We will just lose to the ultimate. They'll be able to find something to interact with us. They didn't want this Sylvan Scrying resolving. A Force of Will, pitching Baleful Strix. We could give up our only black source of mana. I don't think I want to do that though. So we could have a Spirit Guide and crop rotate now. Now our opponent doesn't have anything else going on. So we'll get rid of our forest here. So we'll have a Dark Depths that can tap for mana, which will be really key here because of the Yavimaya. So waiting another turn cycle has really helped us out on that front. A Daze. Okay. I will paste. This is just going to delay us by a turn here. But we're getting this in underneath counter magic, in theory. Alright, opponents. We've drawn our battle lines. Let's see if they're good enough. So we've kept our Lotus Petal here because we need the black mana from it. If we draw something that can Thoughtseize our opponent to take away the Brazen Borrower, what's probably going to happen is we're going to draw Duress, fire it off, our opponent's going to show us a Borrower, and we're going to lose to it. Which is where the difference between Inquisition and Duress comes in. Right, they're drawing a card with the clue. That is a good sign for us. That shows us that our opponent is not happy with the way things are. A Lotus Petal. I'm going to keep this in hand, so our opponent is thinking about what we might have access to. We're not going to make our creature right now. Our opponent can Brazen Borrower our Pithing Needle and then Wasteland us in response when we're going off. But that's very much the same thing as bouncing our guy anyway, so I don't think it's worth going off in case they have some random sorcery answer like a hard cast Kaito or whatever. which can just tap our guy down forever. Okay. Is it getting better for us here? No, because they have Tamiyo ticking up. So this is the turn we go. If they have it, and we lose. So we keep the one without the ice counters on, because the state-based stuff happens before any of the triggers really start working. Right, we've got Your Friend of Mine, Marilege. I don't think we're beating a Borrower here. Okay. They have the Borrower. Another Dark Depths. Okay, so we might have a chance to go still. If we can draw the right thing next turn, then we can go the turn our opponent draws a load of their deck, which probably isn't very good for us. All right, we're not going to beat this if we can't make the 2020 this turn and try and fade one turn. So we're going to go to the sideboard. Our opponent is trying to... So our opponent is going to have answers to our guy. So they've already shown us a Brazen Borrower. They probably have the Shoulders of Edict as well, which means Steely Resolve isn't going to cover us everywhere we need to be. They are a deck that runs the Harbinger of the Seas, which is the thing we just have to answer here. We do not need Bojuka Bog against our opponent, so we can get rid of that. We could probably shave a little bit on one of these fetches. That gets us 2 decays. And then it's a choice of, would we rather... Like, I think we have to keep some Safekeepers in here. Because our hand disruption doesn't hit Borrower specifically, I think we do need the Safekeeper. So we could trim some fast mana, or we could trim another land. I'm a little bit reluctant to trim any more lands because of how things operate. Although we could probably trim this Wasteland, actually. We can Wasteland their Wasteland, which is a thing we can do. But I wouldn't mind a Sorcerous Spyglass here as well. Maybe we'll trim a couple of bits of fast mana. Let's try this. So we can have the Wasteland in, but I don't think it's ideal. Especially for boarding in a Spyglass. So this tutors for half of our combo, but then leaves us with nothing. What we can do with this hand, though, is just get them to play a Harbinger of the Seas, kill the Harbinger of the Seas. I don't think that's necessarily how I want to play this game. So I'm just going to mulligan this and see if we can find something that has access to multiple pieces, like this one. I think we're going to put back the fast mana here and just take things a little bit slower. We have more green sources in our deck than we have black sources, so I'm going to go and get this basic swamp and duress our opponent off of it. Days, Fatal Push. So they do have the Harbinger plan. Do I care about the Days? A little bit. Do I care about the Kaito? Quite a lot. I'm going to take the Kaito. I know that's a problem for later, but it is going to be a problem if we don't deal with it. Right, they're playing the Flooded Strand. So just holding up Days and Fatal Push here. A Sylvan Scrying. We are just firing this off, I think, aren't we? Our opponent's going to Daze here, which takes them a turn away from the Harbinger. So we're just using this as a duress to take away the Daze. They might get some Surveil action going, and then bounce. Yeah, okay, so they're getting a little something out of this. But we're taking this Daze out of their hand. And we're delaying the Harbinger. I don't want to see them top deck a Wasteland here. They don't have cantrips right now to find it. Alright, there's just the Undercity Sewers again. Land goes to the bin. Thoughtseize, we don't need to fire off the Thoughtseize now. I think we're going to cast a Sylvan Scrying. I'm going to get the Dark Depths. Alright, they drew a Force of Will and they pitched the Baleful Strix. Okay. We can fire off the Thoughtseize next turn to take this Harbinger the turn before it comes down. A Lotus Petal. Okay. So this is Thoughtseize. No, we need to off of our swamp, really. Thoughtseize, we can take a look at our opponent's hand. If they have a Brainstorm to save things, they did not. Okay. I'll take the Harbinger and leave them with Fatal Push and nothing over there. Is this a turn we want to be doing crop rotation stuff? Do I want to spend this Lotus Petal on... I think I do want to spend the Lotus Petal now. Because we haven't made a land drop yet. So we can go get this Dark Depths. We can play this Dark Depths, and then any land gives us the combo next turn. This does expose us to Wasteland, but we need to play against what we can see. I'm really curious about this Fatal Push still being in their deck. Alright, Ponder is a very good top deck for our opponent. They get 4 looks at a Wasteland here. They shuffle their library. Was the 4th look the one? We're going to see one of these lands. They did find a Wasteland. Okay, if they let us untap, that's good news. Alright, so we have our crop rotation that we can fire off as and when. So I'm going to play this Pithing Needle. Our opponent's going to Wasteland in response, and then we're going to turn this into another Dark Depths. Okay, we're protected from Wasteland now. We need to find our Thespian stage / Vampire Hexmage. But that's the easier half to find because we have double parts to go with this where we only have the one. Okay, so the Sylvan Safekeeper is just going to get this Fatal Push out of our opponent's hand. That doesn't seem very worthwhile to me. I don't really want to sacrifice a land to keep this around, but let's say we draw a fetch land next turn. I can play the fetch land and I can have the Sylvan Safekeeper and it can protect itself. And that seems good to me. Thoughtseize, alright, we're just going to lose the Safekeeper. We don't have the mana to start manually removing counters because Dark Depths doesn't tap for land for mana itself. Right, we've drawn the Thespian stage here. Here we go. So we had 4 stage, 4 Hexmage, and then we had a bunch of tutors. So we were odds on to hit it at some point. All right, tied up the match. Who needs an Urborg, right? I think I'm happy with how we sideboarded here. We struggled a little bit to draw some of the lands at times, though. Does that mean I want an additional land here? So one of the reasons I like the fast mana here is because this gives us mana around a Harbinger of the Seas. So I think we're just going to go back in again. And when you're playing this deck, you want to, against a deck with Harbinger of the Seas in, where you have a plan of Abrupt Decaying it, you want to fetch your swamp first because you have Lotus Petals which give you green or black, but then you have the Elvish Spirit Guides which give you green, so you're more likely to hit green sources drawing off the top. What does this hand do? We can Duress our opponent, we have the Hexmage combo, this is fine. So this is turn 1, Swamp, Duress again. Now our opponent has shown a propensity to fire discard spells right at us as well. So we don't know how much of this we're going to be left with and what they're going to take. But you never know, they might ponder instead or they might just pass. Okay, so they could brainstorm and hide a card here. That's very good. Okay, we have a turn 2 combo here. Things are looking up. So I'll get the Swamp out. I will play this Lotus Petal now. And I will Duress our opponent. I think we're going to see a brainstorm and then they're going to hide the most relevant card from us. Generally speaking, our deck is pretty good into tempo matchups. This is definitely the worst of the tempo matchups though. Okay. Harbinger of the Seas, Brazen Borrower. Alright. Quite the hand. So our plan here is what? How we get beating this Brazen Borrower is the question. They're going to Thoughtseize us as well. Yikes. Not a bad one for them to keep on top with that brainstorm. They took the Hexmage. Alright, that's actually not the one I would go for if I were them. A Lotus Petal. How does that change things? I'm going to Sylvan Scrying for the Thespian stage. I'm going to play out the Lotus Petal here. This way, if our opponent plays a Harbinger and then Thoughtseizes down the stretch, we just have them in play and we can just blow it up. So if they play a Harbinger this turn, then we play the Dark Depths that has no counters, and then if they ever tap out, we just Abrupt Decay. Now, why would they tap out? That's a very good question. There is a Harbinger of the Seas. So this doesn't impact us right now, but it just means we don't lose 2 cards to make our guy. Play the Dark Depths. So this is a situation where if we have the Sejiri step, then this game is just won at this point. So if our opponent taps out for another Harbinger of the Seas, that would be ideal. I don't know why they would do that. They have a Wasteland as well. That is annoying. So what do? I think we just take the 2 damage and carry on with our life. I don't think we need to go now. We've got a bunch of life to work with. At least our opponent isn't cantripping right now. Harbinger of the Seas. So they are playing the second one out. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so them drawing that Wasteland has really given us some pause for thought here. I think we fire this off, and then they're going to Wasteland here, and then we probably turn this into another Dark Depths. This is going to be a difficult one to win. A Duress. You know what Duress doesn't do? Take Brazen Borrower, but I think I'm going to have a look and see what they're working with. So we know they got the Borrower, just 2 lands, okay. Alright. We need to find, like, the Abrupt Decay, obviously, to take this out. But then we also need to find an answer for this Borrower. I doubt that they're going to play this Borrower to beat down unless it's going to be the last, they play a card the turn before they kill us. Do I play a land out? Yes, I do. It doesn't really matter if we have it in hand. We don't have brainstorms or anything like that. So, oh, are they really just going for it here? Wow. That seems weird to me. Like, this gives them a 3-turn clock. They must have drawn something good last turn. That's the only reason I can think of that you would make that play. Like, if they've drawn, like, a force they can hardcast here. Oh, okay, they want the Kaito, so they're going to bounce back the... Yeah, okay, so this explains that last play. Alright. I think we've lost this one. If we'd have had a Sejiri Step in our deck, we could have won this one, though. Pithing Needle. This probably has to go on Kaito. Just buys us some extra time. Does it even buy us extra time? I don't really want them drawing extra cards here. If they have a Wasteland and they get us with a Wasteland, sure. But I'm playing around the thing that's on board that's going to draw them more cards. This still attacks, by the way. It just can't activate. So we're taking 5 here. But they don't get to draw a bonus card. But they're sitting pretty over there with Force of Will mana, a Barrow Goyf. Sure. That also can gain them life above the 20 threshold, which is how much damage we deal. No, we haven't got anything there. Yep, so the first match came down to the fact that we didn't have Sejiri Step in our deck. That is awkward, because what we could have done then is we could have gone off around a Wasteland, because we knew that we had their Borrower covered with the crop rotation. Yeah, awkward. Alright, let's go to round 2. Alright, this hand does some things for us. I'll keep this. The one of Wasteland is an interesting one here. Are we back into blue-black land? Could be. We don't have a black source to Thoughtseize our opponent with. We now have a black source to Thoughtseize our opponent with. I would like to do that. We can work out what we're sculpting around here. So next turn we throw out the Thespian stage. And then the turn after we can combo. We could Thespian stage and Sylvan Scrying. Alright, so they got a basic, which means we can save our Thespian stages in future. They're dazing that. If our opponent really wants us to resolve, really wants this Thoughtseize to not resolve, I want to make sure that we hit it. Ponder, Yuriko, Fatal Push. Alright, I want to take this Ponder, I think. Okay, so we've got all the time in the world. Ninja's decks don't run Wastelands, so that's a nice thing we don't have to worry about. We are a little bit slower. Duress. We don't care about that for now. Let's just cast this and go and get this Sylvan Scrying on the go. Then we'll get a Dark Depths. Just so we have two cracks at the combo. If we find any piece of fast mana next turn, we get to rip. Otherwise, we're probably duressing. It's not the most relevant thing, but just having a little bit of extra security would be nice. A Pithing Needle isn't actually that relevant right now. I'm going to duress first. We're probably going to name Kaito with this, but we'll see if our opponent's got anything unusual. But I've not seen a ninja deck running Wastelands for a while. Alright, Brainstorm. So that's not great for us. Guess we take this Daze, and they're going to shuffle away something else. Probably this Fatal Push is gone as well. Am I playing out another Thespian stage? I think so. Am I playing out this Pithing Needle? I can name Kaito. I can name Yuriko as well. But I don't really care about Yuriko. Do I name Wasteland on the off chance our opponent is running it? They shouldn't be running it in their deck. I think I'm going to name Kaito. I could name one of their fetch lands, but they have another one, so it's not really going to stop them getting enough mana to do anything. There's a swamp. They're not shuffling, so they want to keep the Fatal Push. That's interesting. Alright, Dark Depths, here we go. I don't believe our opponent has Wastelands. I'm going to stick to that assumption, because we've played the game based around it so far. There is a Prismatic Vista. We have 2 bites of the cherry here, so we're definitely going for it. They can target this with Fatal Push, it just won't kill it. Have you got Brazen Borrower? They should fire it off now and we're tapped out if they do. 3 mana. Sink into Stupor. Sure. So I could Pithing Needle something, or I could turn this Thespian stage into a Bayou so that we have the ability to Hexmage. I quite like that, actually. I think that's what we're going to go for here. That does potentially run into counter magic. Our opponent has to crack this fetch, surely. Yeah, so I'm assuming this Fatal Push is what they've shuffled away, because it looks pretty bad. A Tameo Delta. I guess we can turn it into a basic swamp if we want to, but we might as well turn it into a Bayou. Our opponent's not taxing our lands. Let's get Vampire Hexmage down. Do I want to preemptively deal with this? I don't think we have to this turn because we can't get anything back this turn. Now they could put in a Yuriko, and that's fine. Fatal Push. They've kept the Fatal Push. That's interesting to me. All right, I'll have this Marillage then. They can block with Tameo for a turn if they want to, but they can't get a clue this turn and bounce us back because it has to go in the blocker stage. But they ninjutsu it back. Just casting that Yuriko. Sure, I don't hate that. I think that's a fine thing to do. Thoughtseize. Probably not the one we want here. Just get stuck in with Marillage. Our opponent has 1 card in hand. Are we doing anything here? Is there any point in firing off a Thoughtseize? If that one hand dealt with our Marillage, then they would have used it. If it was a cantrip, they would have used it. So I don't think there's any point firing off this Thoughtseize. The life might be relevant if something does happen and we need to draw some regular cards and get back into this game after something goes horribly wrong for us. Likewise, we could play Pithing Needle here. I guess Otawara maybe, but I don't normally see Otawara in these lists. So this is going to attack and get them a card. And we get to see what it is. Prismatic Vista. That does not answer Marillage. We win the game. Okay. We got there. So, what do I want here? They're probably running Harbinger of the Seas. And Steely Resolve is pretty good against the way they're going to try and interact with us. They probably have 1 Shoulder's Edict, some Sink into Stupors, and a Brazen Borrower. So, what do we need? We don't need the Pithing Needles because we know they're not running Wastelands. So that gives us our 4 Abrupt Decays first. We don't need Bojuka Bog. That gets us 1 Steely Resolve. Thoughtseizes I like. Duress, I think we still need the Duresses. They take Sink into Stupor. They can take counter spells to make it so we can actually resolve our spells. I don't think we need the Wasteland here, so that's a 2nd Steely Resolve. And then I don't know if I want to trim a land again to get the Steely Resolve in. Am I right with just 4 Safekeeper and 2 Steely Resolve? So I could trim 1 fetch land and get the Steely Resolve in. But having more lands helps us play around days and things. I think we're fine. Because obviously, if you board out lands, it makes your Safekeeper slightly worse. So boarding them out for the Safekeeping... Sorry, Steely Resolve is not really where you want to be. This does get us where we need to go. We can Thoughtseize our opponent, then we can go and get the Dark Depths. And we can play out our Safekeeper and just have a decent chunk of protection here. So I like where we're at. And we can take a bite with this Thoughtseize, and then next turn we can decide if we need the Thoughtseize again, depending on what our opponent's hand looks like. I will be firing off this Thoughtseize because I might want to take the Ninja they're going to put in off of this Ornithopter. We're going to see a Brainstorm here protecting their hand. Wouldn't surprise me. There it is. But Thoughtseize is going to take something unless they've just got lands, which is also fine for us. So I suspect they're going to put a Yuriko or something on top. And then maybe they've stacked like a Force of Will underneath the Yuriko, which is pretty good. What do we have here? A Daze, a Harbinger of the Seas, a Baleful Strix. What of these annoys me most? I'll take the Harbinger. Like, we do have answers to Harbinger, but we don't have them in hand right now. We should just be sensible about it. So next turn we can just fire off double interaction if we want to. So we can strip the Daze and then strip a creature. Alright, so they shuffle off the top, so they don't want the 2nd card down. They didn't really have a choice either, to be fair. Baleful Strix. They've got some annoying little chump blockers. Not attacking for 0. And Abrupt Decay is useful. That helps us get 3 blockers. I'm going to duress my opponent. We can see what they kept on top here. Sink into Stupor is what they kept on top. Do I care enough about the days to take the days and then take the Sink into Stupor? I think we want... Oh yeah, this can only get us a Bayou here. I would have got the Swamp if it was something that we can actually get here. Take the Sink into Stupor. We leave our opponent with double Tamios. Now, one of the issues with the Tamio is that it gets to buy back the Sink into Stupor at some point. But they need to flip this. And they're hopefully a few turns away from doing that. Alright, we take one from the bird. Just a little peck. And there is one of the Tamios. I'm going to play around days here. Go for a Sylvan Scrying. Go and get Dark Depths. And then I will deploy this Safekeeper. I don't really want to have to use this Safekeeper to protect itself. So we'll see how that pans out for us. But the Steely Resolve is going to make us very safe against what our opponent's doing here. If we have to go that route. So we need to remove our Safekeeper and our Merit Lage in the same turn cycle. That's not to do the thing. Right, they're just drawing a card with the clue and passing it over. I believe we are just making it now. Like we're already in this. Okay, so we have 2 Shroud Bubbles available here. And then if there's another turn, we can Abrupt Decay a blocker, or we can Steely Resolve just to make sure our creature is more secure. So I think we're in a pretty solid spot right now. There probably is going to be an attack here, just to get a clue. Yeah. I will block because I don't want them putting in Ninja. Because our opponent has 2 blockers here, I'm not going to Abrupt Decay because they're just going to chump block with one of them. So the plan here is to get this down, attack with the Merit Lage, force one of these out, and then I'm going to play the Steely Resolve and just have all of the protection you could possibly imagine. Under the bust you go. An oldie but a goodie, the old Steely Resolve. I miss playing this card. I like playing it on Wizard to really annoy the Cephalid Breakfast decks. A Force of Will, pitching days. Okay. I currently have 3 protection bubbles going on our Merit Lage. So it's going to take a lot to beat us here. And next turn we can just fire off an Abrupt Decay on their chump blocker. They kept off of the Ponder. What could they have that solves the problems they are currently facing? Maybe they think they've got another turn that they don't have. I'll play out this Lotus Petal. I'm going to go for the Decay now, just to try and get this game won. I don't want to give my opponent turns to draw out of this. They probably kept the card based... They probably kept the Ponder based on the fact that they were chump blocking this turn. Orcish Bowmasters. Okay. I'll sacrifice my Verdant Catacombs. And then we'll swing for 20. Alright, we got a 2-0 match win. So, not bad. We didn't get bitten by the fact that we didn't have some of the normal tools that I rely on here. In the one that has modern bordered cards in it as well. Alright, to round 3 we go. This does get us where we need to go and has some reasonable ways of interacting with our opponent's permanents. I'm going to keep this one. It's a bit slower, but our deck is going to be slow. We're not running Urborg, so we're not going to be blisteringly fast here. I think I'm going to get a Bayou and deploy Pithing Needle, naming Wasteland. I'm going to play this out. So, do I think our opponent has Prismatic Endings or Thoughtseizes? Is it better in hand or is it better in play? I think it's better in hand. We'll see. A Cloud Post. Okay. Cloud Post things are happening. So I believe we go Thespian Stage, Sylvan Scrying, get the Dark Depths, deploy the Lotus Petal. We can play this Safekeeper now, but we can play it next turn if we draw some other fast mana. Because the Lotus Petal is a one-shot use anyway. And we just have more options if we wait till next turn. Grim Monolith, we're going to see the One Ring. No. Not the One Ring. Another Safekeeper. So we probably do need the Safekeeper. Because of our opponent having the ability to Kozilek's Command here. I guess what we could do is cast a Hexmage. and then deploy the depths. Then if our opponent taps out on their turn, we can make a 20/20 and then follow up by playing a couple of Safekeepers out. But if they have 2 colourless mana available, we can't just make our Merit Lage here, because it will just get Kozilek's commanded. Because why shouldn't colourless have a 2 mana spell that kills a 20/20? This is probably going to be the One Ring. There it is. They still have the 2 colourless mana up for the Kozilek's command. Maybe this will be one of the last times I play against this card. It might get banned. We can hope. Urza's Tower. Alright. There's no point making a guy because it won't do anything here. I'm going to deploy a Sylvan Safekeeper. I'm also going to deploy a second Sylvan Safekeeper. No point attacking, like I said, because they have the One Ring. And now we can protect our Merit Lage 3 times. So we should be able to beat a Kozilek's command. The question is, how much stuff can our opponent do this turn? Are we supposed to make... I think we probably make the Merit Lage in our opponent's upkeep here. We getting trench posted or something? No. What's happening here? It's just 3 mana, so 2 from this and 1 from the tower. I'm thinking about it. So now I'm going to make the Dark Depths. So if our opponent spends mana, it's in this turn cycle rather than the previous one. And our opponent's deck has 1 Wasteland in it. And I don't want to just top deck that 1 Wasteland, because they usually have 1 Wasteland for the Microspawn to go and fetch, just so you can sometimes just ruin the game on turn 2 for people. Blast Zone, you say? That strikes me as a problem. So this and this is the 3 mana they need for this, though. So they won't be able to cast a Kozilek's command if they take out our Safekeepers here. Because we have the combo again, I won't spend any. If they crack this Blast Zone, I think I just take it. So cracking it. They played their land for the turn. Am I okay with all these things going? What are they going to do to me with 1 colourless mana? Goodbye, lots of our permanents. And then they're scooping it up. Excellent. I'll take that. So, they're going to have some big mana stuff going on. The main thing I'm worried about them doing is stopping our creature with Kozilek's command and playing a Karn and getting in Stonebridge. So these 7 other cards I'm interested in. We do not require Pithing Needles necessarily. This can stop Karn. This can kill the things that Karn gets, which is probably the better way of doing it. We don't need a Bojuka Bog. That gives us 2 Abrupt Decays. Don't think we'll take any more lands out. I like Hand Disruption here in a big way. Is just 2 Abrupt Decays enough? So we don't have like the Boseiju in the mana base I normally like. So that's a little bit awkward. I think the fast mana to go quicker is obviously a useful thing to have here. We're not cutting our combo cards, so all these cards are safe. So the only place we can cut from is trimming a fetch land to get a 3rd Abrupt Decay. Maybe we have to do that. I think we just have 3 Abrupt Decays. We either cut that, we cut fast mana, but we need to go underneath what our opponent's doing, because if the game goes on long enough, our opponent's deck wins. That's what Cloud Post does. It has the best late game of basically any deck, because it just repeatedly casts Emrakul over and over again. And there's not really much you can do about that. It's also the best Microspawn deck in my opinion. So, this is a turn 3 kill. So we have a turn 1 Duress, a turn 2 Steely Resolve, turn 3 Do the Thing. That sounds pretty good to me. I'm going to keep this. Tapped Cloud Post. An Elvish Spirit Guide. Does this speed up our clock at all? I don't believe it does. Alright, let's get the Duress in. See what tools our opponent is trying to leverage this game. A Kozilek's Command and a Crop Rotation. Which of these scares me most? They have a lot of mana coming along soon, don't they? There's a lot of mana. I think the Crop Rotation is actually harder for us to beat, given our current hand. We've got so much mana popping off over there. Sylvan Scrying. We don't need to Sylvan Scrying, do we? We can just go Thespian stage, cast a Steely Resolve, name Avatar. That shuts off the Kozilek's command. I doubt they're going to have many answers to Steely Resolve. They probably have Karn fetching Portable Hole. In an emergency, we can Crop Rotate here. But we're going to have to hit our opponent twice with the Merit Lage, which is not the amount of times I like to hit my opponent. Playing a Nexus. I'll just play this one out and pass. So we do have the win next turn. Or this turn. Well, our next turn because we attack next turn. But I suspect this Glimmer Post comes down and gains them 4 life. This is going to be a K command. They're going to be making a bunch of mana and digging here. Not a big fan of this one. But this is the format we signed up for. People get to cast Kozilek's Command. Just a casual 7 mana on 3 land drops. I think a lot of people sleep on how good this Cloud Post deck is. I think it's really solid. Another Planar Nexus. Yep. This is worth 3 mana. It pumps both of these by 1. So they can probably hardcast Emrakul, right? 4, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, they have Emrakul mana. They're not gaining extra life off this Glimmer Post, which is maybe something that's okay for us. A Sowing Mycospawn. If this is what they're doing, then we just make a 20/20 in response. Do they have Karakas, though? It doesn't matter, right? So they're kicking this, are they? Alright, I'm going to respond. Would I like to keep black mana around, or would I like to keep the Yavimaya going? Because we can use one of these Spirit Guides and just get rid of our Yavimaya. So I'm going to keep around the Bayou so that we have access to things like Abrupt Decay if we need it. Now our opponent's still got 7 mana available. So it's entirely possible they play like the One Ring or something. But I'm hoping the Steely Resolve does the work we need it to do. We might also just be losing all of our lands anyway because they might just get a Wasteland here. So all of our lands disappear and then they Wasteland our Bayou. They stacked it in a way that we didn't get to see what they were going for. Although I think we still have to go for it before either of these triggers resolve. So they get a Wasteland, then we're in an awkward spot. Okay, so they got Glimmer Post, so they're gaining some life. Alright, what is our plan here? Keep turning our guys sideways, hope it wins the game. Good plan. Just put some Berserks in our deck, just so we can get that extra damage. That'd be quite funny. I suspect we see the One Ring here, and that's probably just the game at that point. Alright, this is the K command. The way they were casting it definitely looked like a K command. Yep, so this spell is kind of free in a lot of ways. It costs them 2 mana, and then all the other mana just gets refunded. Not a big lover of this design, to be honest with you. It's certainly not the most egregious thing in the format, but it is a bit of a weird design. It's got a blue mode, it's got like a white mode, it's got a green mode, and it's got a black mode. It just doesn't really feel like a colourless card to me. Problem is, Emrakul is probably in our very near future. They put 1 on top, only 1 on top. Alright, we're going to attack with this Merit Lage. And then I think we're going to Wasteland a Cloud Post here. Go Gadget 1 of Wasteland. And see if this messes with our opponent. It's what we've got. Maybe that stops them casting the card they put on top. There's a tower. That's still a lot of mana, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they can still cast an Emrakul. We attempted to keep them off of Emrakul mana. Obviously, the One Ring just chaining into more copies of the One Ring. Sowing Mycospawn. This doesn't matter. But this could just be free, because if they go and get a Gaia's Cradle here, it taps for loads of mana. They're just shooting for a land. They don't care about our land. That's fine. Makes sense. An Eye of Ugin. So now they have the ability to tutor for an Emrakul. But they can't tutor and cast it in 1 turn. Alright, something's happening. Looks like an Eye of Ugin tutor. Do they have Wastscape Battle Mage? No, just another Mycospawn. How did this stop you from dying to my 2020? Because this doesn't have reach on it, does it? No. It's got a lot of words on it, but none of those words are reach. What am I missing here? Because they now... I guess if they get something like a Cradle, they still have the mana to activate... sorry, to deploy the One Ring. Alright, they didn't have it, and we get to win. My opponent cast 3 Mycospawns on me in 1 game. But we won, so we are the hero. Alright, turn 1, let's go to round 4. This is a weird looking hand. We have a bunch of fast mana. So we can add 1 mana, turn into something else. Add another mana, turn into something else. Does this work? No, because it's triple green we end up with, right? And we need black. If this was an Urborg, we could go tap for black, turn it into an Urborg, tap for black, turn it into a Thespian stage. Sorry, a Dark Depths, play the Hexmage, win. We didn't get to do that right now, because this can turn itself into whatever. We're on the draw, though. A single land, and this hand looks pretty good. I think it's very shaky. I'm going to mulligan this one. It would have been an interesting one to try out, though. Not having an Urborg is a real doozy, isn't it? But we'll keep this one. I think we put back the Hexmage here. We got some crop rots kicking around. We can Pithing Needle on Wasteland. We can play our Wasteland and then name Wasteland with a Pithing Needle. That's always an amusing play. But we'd probably Thespian stage because we already have a piece of fast mana. There's definitely ways where it could go that gives us a combo a turn earlier than we're expecting. Part of playing the Turbodepths deck, which is something I discuss at length on the guide on my Patreon, is playing your lands out in a way that gives you the best possible draws to try and reduce the amount of turns it takes till you kill your opponent. Like, land sequencing is very important. You need to leave yourself open to whatever top decks can get you where you need to go. We only have one green source of mana right now, which is definitely a thing we have to be aware of. Okay, I don't hate the swamp here. Do I like the swamp more than the Thespian stage? I don't think I do. I think we're going to play this out, and if our opponent counterspells this, that'd be interesting. If they daze it, then we could pay, but that is a real cost, because that is our only green source. Our Pithing Needle was so powerful that our opponent lost connection in the face of it. We'll see if they come back. Our opponent has returned. Alright, so we're in with our Pithing Needle now. We'll name Wasteland, and we'll move on with our life. Resolving this crop rotation might be a difficult spot here, but at least we have the black source so we can duress our opponent. Also, for the purpose of this video, I did use the basic lands I actually use in paper at the moment. Big fan of Onslaught. Blue, counterbalance? Lord of Atlantis. Oh no. Am I going to lose to Merfolk? Okay, this is actually really handy for us. We get to have a look at their hand and make sure that we can resolve our spells here. Big fan of resolving spells. A Flare of Denial. What do we have here? Waterfront Bouncer. That's a Merfolk. That's a weird looking Merfolk, isn't it? I'm very familiar with this card though because it's like an old school Madness play. Okay, so we're obviously going to hit Flare of Denial here. What are we doing about this? So I think we just hope our opponent doesn't draw a counter spell right now. That is our line. And next time we make a 20/20 and kill our opponent. They're going to play the Waterfront Bouncer. They're going to play the Waterfront Bouncer. We might need an answer to this one. Waterfront Bouncer in Legacy. Yikes. Thoughtseize. That's not really that helpful. I'll play a Wasteland. We don't have any protection spells that we can rely on here. Is this doing anything for us? This taps for mana, then gets turned into a Yavimaya. So we have one floating and the Yavimaya. This becomes a Dark Depths. And then we have the one leftover mana. So we could Thoughtseize right now to make sure that our stuff resolves, and it shouldn't matter. Alright, let's take a bite out of crime over there. A Lord of Atlantis or a Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. You can keep your Lord of Atlantis. Keep it old school. Okay, our opponent might not think we can go off, so if what we want them to do is draw a land, play both their lords, and swing. Lord of Atlantis. Okay, please play your other lord. Don't be a coward. Come on. Play the master. They shouldn't. They don't need to, I don't think, on this board. Oh, yes, we're going to get him. Whew. Whew. Okay, so this is 4/8 damage. We take 8, then we kill our opponent. They were looking at our mana base going, I don't know the maths of what we're supposed to do here. And the Waterfront Bouncer is attacking. We go to the end step. We will float this. We will crop rotate. No, we will not float here. We crop rotate this swamp into a Yavimaya. Then this gets rotated into a Dark Depths. Then the Thespian stage copies the Dark Depths. And then we get there. Our opponent is going to feel pretty bad about that one. They had their weird waterfront bouncer tech. Alright, we got the win there. Whew. They are probably running Harbinger of the Seas, so I would very much like to Abrupt Decay that. We do not require a Bojuka Bog for this matchup, so that can get out of here. Our opponent probably does have Wastelands though, so we're probably going to need to worry about that one. The Duresses aren't that impressive here. Like, they're okay. The Sylvan Safekeepers are basically going to be untouched. It can maybe save us some life in a pinch, so I don't mind that. So I think this is what we're looking at here. I'm going to go back in. If you showed me the artwork of Waterfront Bouncer, I would probably not guess it was a Merfolk in a million years. That is not how that card appears to me. Alright, what does our hand do here? We have a little bit of protection. We've got an answer for the thingy. The Harbinger. Yeah, this seems fine. Keep this. So in that last game, it's important sometimes that you make it look like you haven't got much going on. A Ponder from our opponent. You don't often see the Ponders in the Merfolk decks. Maybe they are just running like Lords and then a few little interesting silver bullets instead of just, excuse me, just playing all of the Merfolk you can possibly imagine. I think I would like to get this Yavimaya down. I'll get this Lotus Petal down as well. I'm going to play the Safekeeper. I'm mostly going to be using Bounce. So if they bounce this, it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to use my Lotus Petal because we might need that for the purposes of Abrupt Decays. If our opponent plays a Harbinger of the Seas, we can just play the Dark Depths. A Lord of Atlantis. An uncounterable Lord of Atlantis. Be my guest. Okay. So I think this turn, the play is actually to Sylvan Scrying here. I'm not necessarily expecting this to resolve, but we should get some resources out of our opponent's hand. We actually want them to play the Harbinger, because that's our easiest line to winning, because uncounterable land drop, uncounterable spell. Whereas trying to get there with these is going to cost us going through the gauntlet of counter spells that our opponent no doubt has access to. Yep, there we go. We got the Force out. Just dictating the pace of this game. A Marshal of the Pearl Trident. Alright. So we want our opponent to tap out for Harbinger of the Seas, please. That's not a Harbinger of the Seas. I'm very reluctant to just fire off a crop rotation as well. So probably have to worry about Daze and possibly Force of Negation. They didn't attack with the Lord of Atlantis. Intriguing. Given that, I think I'm just going to pass here. Because they didn't attack, so we are okay. Because we also comboed from like nothing last turn, our opponent's probably a little bit scared of what we can accomplish. I'll take 2. We can Abrupt Decay this at end of turn if we want to. Interesting choice to play that there. Do I want to attempt a combo here? It doesn't really work that way, does it? Alright, I think I'll blow up one of these. So many misclicks our opponent says. Happens to the best of us, don't you worry. 4 cards in our opponent's hand. I guess we try and crop rotate this swamp into a Thespian stage. If this doesn't work, then we hold the Dark Depths in hand. Force of Negation, pitching Daze. Okay. I'm going to play out this Pithing Needle, I believe. I'm going to name Wasteland. I don't know if our opponent is running it, but I don't want to get caught out by it. Right, we get to attack for 1 here. We could name Waterfront Bouncer, but we have an answer for that in hand. There's your land. Play your Harbinger, please. They slammed this pretty quickly, so I have to assume that's what's happening. There it is. Finally. Thank you, opponent. And now we get to win the game. See, understanding how the matchups let you get some nice edges like this. And we can fortunately not have to lose to Merfolk. They're going to play another one. They are. In response. I'm going to blow this up. So this is black from this and green from this. That's how we get them. And then we have 1 Shroud available. Alright, we got the GGs from the opponent. They were a pretty lovely and friendly human being, even if they were playing poor little fish and getting stomped on by a giant avatar. Okay, so we are 4 rounds in, and we're currently 3-1, so not too shabby, to be honest, considering we are playing a significantly muted version of the best build of our deck. Yeah, nice. Let's go to the final round. This is an uncounterable turn 4 Dark Depths, or a counterable turn 3 Dark Depths combo. Is that good enough? We have a little bit of interaction. It's very slow, but I guess we keep this one. Every piece of fast mana we draw increases our odds of going earlier. We are on the play, which I think makes this just about viable. This is probably too slow, but we're going to see how it fares. Do I want to get... I wouldn't mind setting my opponent into a Wasteland-based game, but if they are playing Blood Moon on turn 1, I want to have access to a basic land here. So I'm going to play out the Verdant Catacombs. Actually, we're just stone cold dead to Blood Moon, aren't we? In game 1 here. Tundra. Okay, so now I'm very happy we have this uncounterable line. Nomads. Okay, maybe I'm not so happy, but we do have the way of blowing out their graveyard if that's what they're up to. Thoughtseize. They're not going to mess with our mana base, so we get to Thoughtseize our opponent here. Brainstorm, Swords to Plowshares, Teferi. We could take a cheesy line here. We could take the cheesy line of taking the swords, and if they go all in on the Illusionist this turn, we blow them out. The problem with doing that is that our opponent gets to just wait one more turn. Do I think our opponent's just going to send it into us and think that we're a clown? Like, I don't think our hand beats Swords to Plowshares anyway. Alright, I'm going to take a bit of a weird line here. I'm going to go for trying to wreck our opponent in a way that is a bit cheesy. I assume our opponent is going to respect us, though, and just not send it right now. There is a Scepter Illusionist. Are they going to disrespect us? They are! Okay, so we might... Now, they might have just drawn a counterspell. But we've taken a bit of a weird line here, and maybe it's going to pay off. I don't know if I could keep a straight face taking this line if I did it in paper. But sometimes you get to do some weird things in this game of Magic the Gathering of ours. So you do have the Memories Journey line, but we're just going to exile their whole graveyard with the one-off Bojuka Bog that we have. If they've drawn a counterspell as their draw for turn, then sure, we lose. Right, so this looks like a pretty stock build so far, nothing unusual. We've got the Nardus and the Memories Journey line. There's a Dread Return. Thassa's Oracle is already in there. Oh, we're going to get to play Steely Resolve and name Wizard. That's going to be so sick. We can probably work out if they've drawn a force here, couldn't we? There's one force there. 2 force. Only 2 forces, though. Have they drawn another one? 3 forces. Okay. Please show me another force. They could have a daze still. How many dazes are in there? 2 dazes. There's the other force. Okay, so they didn't draw a force. Normally these lists only run 2 to 3 dazes. So if there's 2 dazes in here, they might have just thrown this entire game. Let's see. Right, their library is empty. They're going to sack some guys. Please just be on a 2 days build. Learn to respect your opponents, people. They had us absolutely stone cold dead if they wait one more turn there. Because they can just Memories Journey the Oracle on top. Wow. Alright, I'll take it. Steely Resolves, get in here. So we can board a whole bunch of stuff here. So all of this and the Spyglass, all of this is stuff that we can play. The Bojuka Bog is pretty decent here. The Duress is an interesting one because we want to hit things like Teferi, Prismatic Ending, Swords to Plowshares, but it doesn't affect their combo. So if we're using this to protect, then we need to use these things to mess with their combo. I don't actually like the Pithing Needle that much because they have Nomads, they have Shuko. Quite often we're going to name the wrong thing. Steely Resolve kind of just does what we need it to. This is target creature you control, so we can't give their creature Shroud in case you were wondering. So we get one more of these if we're going to have this lineup of stuff. I don't believe they run Harbinger of the Seas because they've got Urza Sagas and all sorts themselves. That doesn't really seem like a good shout for them. I could run some Leyline of the Void to mess up their graveyard line. I could run one more Pithing Needle. I could run like a Singleton Decay to get through. Is that alright? I think this is probably what we're looking at here. Feels a little bit light on dealing with what they're doing. How much do I need the fast mana? Can we trim the fast mana and get us another decay? I think so. We can have one more decay. I think I'm going to keep the Wasteland because they have Urza Sagas, which might be relevant to hit. Like the Null Rod is basically just a Pithing Needle in this matchup as well, so it's not really worth bringing in. I don't really want the Bojuka Bog in my hand. I like the Steely Resolve, but then what are we doing here? We need to mulligan and have our game plan. Hand Disruption is good. Tutors are good. We keep this, throw away the Bojuka Bog. We will need to draw another land, but we have the ability to find another land using our Sylvan Scrying. So probably Sylvan Scrying for Bayou on one. Like, there's definitely some flaws in our hand, for sure. But I don't mind this one. A lot of our deck is mana. Right, just a Ponder. That's fine. Can't believe we got away with that in game one. Can't believe they disrespected us. Alright, we drew a Bayou. That's even better. Now we can just fire off this Thoughtseize straight away. They shuffled with their Ponder, so they're not floating anything on top. I'm going to play out this Lotus Petal first. If they want to daze our thing, then I'm happy to trade. Nomads and Core, Prismatic Ending, Shuko. So we can't break up this combo, but we can break up this Disruption. I don't really want them Prismatic Ending our thing. So that's what we're going to take here. We've just got a whole bunch of lands there. Played Plains, very nice Plains of course. They're going to play the Nomads, they're going to play the Shuko, they're going to equip the Shuko to the Nomads and have the beatdown ready to go. Dark Depths. Is there any way that we can make this work for us? We have Dark Depths in play. We rotate into Yavimaya. We tap, then we rotate into Thespian stage. Okay, that works. We have the kill on our opponent's turn if they don't have a counter spell. But they can't have forcible... They could have forcible blue card, I suppose. But we also want to hold up the crop rotation. I think we're just going to go, though. We could block here, but again, I don't want to just get killed by a Prismatic Ending. Tap out for something inconsequential, please, opponent. Not to Teferi, though. A Narcomoeba. That is not inconsequential. I don't believe this gets better for us, though. So let's crop rotate away our Bayou. Or Yavimaya. Green. Green. Crop rotate away our Yavimaya. Go get Thespian stage. Turn the Thespian stage into a Dark Depths. Make a 2020. And get Swords to Plowshed. Like, our opponent was just drawing blind off the top there, so I'm okay with this. We're giving our opponent one turn to have the goods here. I don't think it gets better because our opponent can just top deck something at any minute that wins the game. And they will have the mana for Memory's Journey this time around, so it's just not going to be a viable solution to us to just sit back, especially when our opponent's got cantrips and all sorts. Alright, our opponent will know if they are dead or not now. Okay, we're brainstorming. That's a good way to find a way of not being dead. They still have a land drop, so they can play this Cavern of Souls and just combo off in response. Well, not in response, but in this turn before we get to crack them again. They could play a Cavern of Souls on Illusion. I keep thinking this is a jellyfish, because it looks like a jellyfish. They can play this on Illusion to play out their Narcomoeba if they have one. They're going to pending us. There's lots of ways that we lose this game. Urza Saga. Okay, so no blue mana, so this isn't getting bounced. They're not comboing this turn. And Nomads and Core. So we don't know the cards in their hand because they brainstormed. So they're either just playing it out for the sake of playing it out, or they've got a Swords to Plowshares. That's the only thing that makes sense here. Unless they're going to pending this in the second main phase. Okay, so they have the plow. Alright. So now we are kind of in the dirt. Now we are no longer in the dirt. Let's go and get our... I think a Bayou is fine here. It sets us up so that we can draw the Hexmage next turn and go one turn earlier than we're planning to. Right, so we're going to get the Dark Depths. Okay, so our opponent is hellbent drawing off the top. They did brainstorm. They have this Urza Saga. I don't know what they're going to have off the Saga that can mess with us, whether or not they have a Pithing Needle. That's certainly a possibility. We can Thespian stage their Urza Saga though. That's an interesting play. How big is this? We got loads of life, so we don't really care about the beatdown. So I think we're going to copy the Urza Saga now. This will learn to make mana on our turn anyway. But we are the one with the Urza Saga now. Obviously, that's not really our plan, but if something goes horribly awry, we at least have it. Pithing Needle. They're going to have to name Urza Saga, which will shut off their own Urza Saga. They named Thespian stage. This is not a Thespian stage. This is an Urza Saga. Alright, we baited our opponent into a misplay in game 1, and we seem to have baited them into a misplay in game 2 as well. Incredible. Wizard. Are they just going to kill us this turn? Fast as Oracle. Alright, we're on the beatdown. I wonder if they have 2 Oracles. Probably not. With Nardus, you don't really need 2 Oracles. You just generate enough material that it's fine. They put a card on top, so they wanted the card as well. So we have to decide if we're going to be cranking out constructs or not. They kept a card on top. I'm curious if they're going to play it. I would very much like to see them play it. We can make a 20-20 and block here. I don't think that's how we win this game. Do I want to just start making constructs? We can't do it this turn. We can only do it next turn. Oh, they played their card out. Okay, so they're just going to lose now because they don't know how the interaction of these cards works. All right. We bet our opponent to misplace twice. Beautiful. All right, so we got the match. So I would say that against a stronger player, we're probably not losing... we're probably not winning that last round. I think if I was playing Breakfast and my opponent looks at my hand, sees that I can kill them on the next turn, and then takes a piece that isn't part of that, I would ask myself, okay, this means they probably have something here. What colours are they? Okay, they're a green deck. They probably have something that can interact with our graveyard, you know, like a crop rotation or whatever, or they have a removal spell for the guy. So if I play my guy out and I start going and then don't remove it, then that probably means they have graveyard hate, so I'm just going to hold for a turn and have the Memory's Journey. Anyway, scoreboard, we are 4-1 with the deck, which is incredible. I think this is more a demonstration of how good Turbodepths is, rather than the fact that playing a suboptimal build is somehow the secret way. But let's talk about the deck. So the whole combo of doing the Dark Depth stuff is a very powerful thing to be doing in Legacy. It's proactive. We have some pretty universal disruption in Thoughtseize. Our opponent has to answer our stuff a lot of the time. And for the decks that really, really go under us, we do have some stuff to try and limit that. Now, we didn't necessarily play against all the tier 1 decks today, because we did play against the Merfolk deck, which is obviously not necessarily where you want to be in Legacy right now, in my opinion. But, you know, we had some real games today. We fought our way through a couple of tempo decks, which are having a really good time at the moment in the meta. So, yeah, I think Turbodepths is definitely a place to be right now in Legacy. I enjoy this deck. I've been playing it quite a lot. When I'm not playing decks for the channel, I'm usually jamming this. I don't get to play as much as I would like because I spend a lot of time making videos for you lovely people. But my win rate has decreased. I had an over 70% win rate a couple of weeks ago, but now it's dropped down again. So we're sort of mid 60s-ish. I think we're like 66, 67, somewhere around that. I can't remember the exact figure. But the win rate has definitely dropped a little bit. So I think things were a little bit trickier for Turbodepths than it was. And we're certainly making it harder for ourselves here. But this was respectable. I was not ashamed to be playing this deck today. I think it looks beautiful. These old borders are the best borders. And I will hear no other opinions on that. This is how I like my Magic cards to look. And what we were doing here was pretty good. I think if you want to make some changes, I would probably swap out one Misty Rainforest for... Actually, do you even need to swap out the Misty Rainforest? I'm just working out if you want to swap this out for a... you can swap this for an overgrown tomb, or you could swap it out for a City of Brass. Something along those lines would be fine. Obviously, there's a bunch of things you could play that would be better if we're playing cards with modern borders. I think the two things I missed most were the things I expected to miss most. So the Urborg, sometimes our mana was a little bit awkward to cast some of the things we're trying to do, and Urborg would have really helped that out, especially when we're trying to do Hexmage lines. We did manage to get there, but if we're under a little bit more pressure, we maybe don't have the time to do that. And I did miss having a Sejiri step. We did lose... was it the first round we lost? Was because we didn't... Yeah, so we lost the first round because we didn't have the Sejiri step. We lost a game. I think we actually lost 2 games because we didn't have the Sejiri step as a thing. So this could have been a 5-0 with just one Sejiri step. And, you know, it doesn't have an old border yet. Maybe one day it'll have one, but maybe it's okay to run one card that makes a big difference to the deck there. But I like the Safekeepers. These felt really good. I've been quite fond of the Safekeepers. They are worse than Not of This World a lot of the time, because quite often in your first and second turns you're like Thoughtseizing, or you're casting your Tutors, or you're casting your Pithing Needle, so you don't necessarily have the mana to put the Safekeeper into play. But when you get a little bit more space to breathe, this can be pretty good, and it's something that I've been running in the sideboard for a while now. I do own 4 copies with this beautiful art as well. So, should you be running an old bordered version of Turbodepths? Probably not. But is it fine? Yeah, probably. You're going to lose a bunch of percentage points, but it's probably not going to be enough to stop you having a good time. I like the sideboard here. I don't know if I would change the sideboard. Getting to play Steely Resolve again felt nice. I've always enjoyed this card. We didn't get to ruin our breakfast player by putting this on Wizard and then them being confused why their combo doesn't work. That's a fun thing you can do. It's not as good now because now they have Nadu, the Nomad can just ping itself and they still get to draw some additional cards, but it does stop the Illusionist combo. And it does stop them targeting Nadu. So it's going to limit their ability to draw cards in quite a way, and it does stop them from just fully windmilling their whole library into the graveyard. Yeah, so I think that's the end of today. I hope you really enjoyed this one. If you've got any little thoughts or any cards that I've missed that happen to have old borders that would be useful here, by all means let me know. I'm sure the person who donated to see this little challenge will be very happy with how it turned out and would love to hear some advice if anyone's got any. But I'm very proud of our 4-1 finish today, and I think my favourite bit today was where we managed to bait that breakfast player twice. I feel bad for them a little bit, but they shouldn't have disrespected us. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.